Hey everyone, Cody Menz here. This video I'm going to be going over unreleased tanks that are currently in the game client as of the 1.18.1 update that we just got here. I believe that's the right update that we just got basically mid-October here. I made a video similar to this last year, basically going over all the unreleased tanks, also upcoming tanks that we might be seeing in a very near future, and just give me a little glimpse of them for those that don't really poke around in the game client. I'm going to be making a follow-up video at some point, which you might find in the description below or at the very end of the video, kind of recommended to watch it. Basically for what I think is going to come out for Holiday Ops 2022, but that's going to be at a later date. In any event, let's get started here. I'm going to start basically from the top down, and then there's going to be some pretty interesting tanks towards the end of the video too that are actually hidden a little bit deeper in the client that you can't find just basically poking around a tech tree with a mod like this. In any event, so this tank on the NA server is actually pretty rare, the M4A2E4. This is actually a pre-order tank. You can find it over on the RU region. Not too sure about EU, but they actually sell this in a client on the RU region, but not really on NA. Who knows, maybe at some point, maybe they'll sell it in the future, because they've done it for pretty much every other special tank from like the pre-order era. On NA, maybe it'll be one of like a auction tank, something like that in the future. Who knows? But basically it's just your typical Sherman. Now there's also, so digging into things, I'm gonna start low tier and go up tiers basically for each nation. There's the TS54. Now this tank's been in the client for a little bit now. This is an upcoming tier 8 premium double barrel American heavy tank. Nothing too crazy. Damage per shot's pretty low. Armor's okay. Mobility's a little bit sluggish on it. Good gun depression. This could be one of the tanks that we see here in late fall, winter for Holiday Ops, because it's kind of fits the bill of something quirky, different, not great performance-wise unless they change it between now and then. But a new premium tank, that always gets people excited. There's a tier 9, so TL7, that's been hanging around the game files for a little while now, and it's been fully balanced, it seems like. This is an upcoming tier 9 premium or reward tank destroyer for the American nation. It does have an autoloader. This is pretty interesting. So it's got a pretty different gun than what you expect from most American tanks, and it's very small. The gun's very large for this tank. It's longer than the actual tank, and the mobility is pretty darn good on it. It's pretty different, all things considered. And the gun is labeled basically as a British gun, so this one's going to be a fun tank. I could see this being like a possible like marathon, or Holiday Ops, or even maybe a Battle Pass reward tank in the future. But this would definitely be interesting to release, because it is a very different tank, and it seems like it'll be pretty fun to play. Now, a little further here. So this was in my last year's video too. This tank's been hanging around the game files, which crap, I clicked the wrong button here, for a very, very long time. Basically the M48/T54E2. This way back in the day, they were almost like testing smoothbore tanks. It had a different gun, I believe, back then, but this was like kind of like a catch-all like testbed tank for the developers to play around with, and it never went anywhere basically. But it's been hanging around the game files for like years now, and I don't think we'll ever see this come out. There are a couple more US tanks I'll get to a little bit later, newer ones. There's a M47 Improved, a tier 8 upcoming premium medium tank, and even a tier 9 T54 Heavy. Those I guess can't find in a tech tree, so I'm skipping them for now and kind of circling back to them. Germany, you have a few more tanks than US here. Now, there's a tier 5, if I could find it in this list. This tank's been hanging around for a while. Tier 5 premium heavy tank. I believe, the VK6501H. I could see this being thrown in to holiday ops kind of as a filler, but it's been hanging around for a little while, so you know that might not be the case. But this would definitely be like a filler tank for them to release for like a reward, you know, a login reward, you know, stuff like that, or a filler in loot boxes, or even like, you know, something extra for like an auction or something. Now at tier 6, there's a couple interesting tanks. So the Tiger 217, don't think this has, you know, ever been released on NA. Not sure about other servers. You know, this is one of your typical like tier 6 premium stock Tigers. And then there's also hanging around in the game files still, if I can find it here, maybe that's gonna be, so kind of kill two birds with one stone here. I'm gonna skip ahead here. The Tiger 1L56, this tank is again another stock Tiger. It's been hanging around in game files for years. Kind of curious why they just don't remove it. So this was the precursor for you know, like the stock Japanese Tiger, you know, stuff like that, the premiums. They were using this to kind of test, you know, whether or not that would work and stuff before releasing them. And it's been sitting around in the game files since. Now, moving on to tier 7 for Germany here, there's a couple, so like down-tiered tanks here. There's a down-tiered Tiger 2H, you know, with an 8.8 centimeter gun. Maybe we'll see this at the, you know, in the future, but looking at like some of these, and even for Russia here, they have like these down-tiered, like almost stock versions of some higher tier tanks. Like this is a tier 7 VK4502B, you know, 8.8 centimeter. Almost seems like they were planning like a special mode, maybe like historical mode, you know, something like that, that kind of got canned. But you know, these are kind of unreleased premium tanks that maybe we'll see, you know, at some point, but it almost seems like it was kind of like a canned, you know, special event that they were going to do. There's even a tier 8 prototype Jagdtiger, kind of down tiered, you know, down to tier 8, and you know, this has a little bit beefier gun with 12.8 centimeter. But that's kind of my thoughts on, you know, these maybe we'll see like them trickle out for like an auction or black market or something, but otherwise I don't think that, you know, these are tanks that we'll see you know, short term. This is also, so this was sold the KanJpz, so this is a 90mm gun. Originally this was sold, I believe, only once. It was deemed so awful, you know, that's where we got the KanJpz 105, you know, basically after quite a bit of time. But I could see them bringing this back like in an auction or a black market, because it is, you know, basically a tank to where it's not great, but some people I feel like would pick it up just to collect tanks. I know I definitely would. Moving on to Russia. So Russia is gigantic for the amount of tanks they have that are not released. Yeah, it's gonna take a little while. So tier 5, this is what a lot of people think is gonna be the well-deserved reward tank for this year. It's an auto-loading, or you know, auto-reloader KV1, or KV1S I should say, at tier 5. Pretty interesting, very weird. I don't know why they would choose the well-deserved reward. I'd rather them pick something like maybe the auto-loading, you know, M41 Bulldog that they stole from us, or like something. But this is what a lot of people think is going to be the well-deserved reward. It could also be like a holiday ops, you know, kind of stocking stuffer in the loot boxes too, as one of the mid tiers. And they could surprise us with an actual interesting tank for the well-deserved reward, but we'll see. There's a lot of tier 7s, lots of T44s. So going over those really quickly, there's a T54 85. So this tank, you know, I guess I'll pop into actually view them. Basically unreleased premium tank, you know, tier 7, basically down tiered T44. There's also a couple T44 122s. So these were pretty much rewards for like forum moderators. 122mm version in T44, been hanging around in game files for a long time. Maybe they'll bring them out at some point for like, again, like an auction or black market tank or something. There's also, this was in my video last year, T44 1, or T44 lightweight, a tier 8 light tank. They were considering adding this in when they stretched the light tanks to tier 10 for all the nations way back then, and this kind of got the cut, you know, for whatever reason, and it's kind of been hanging around since. Can see this, you know, again being black market tank, because yeah, it seems to be what they do for those like old tanks they don't know what to do with. The Key 2, upcoming tier 8 premium heavy tank. This thing has ridiculous armor. It's basically a prototype of the IS-4, and it is slow, its gun sucks, but the armor, basically tier 6s and tier 7s are just gonna, I don't know, they're gonna run away or ram you or something to damage you. The armor's that good. I could definitely see this being a holiday ops tank, maybe even a marathon, who knows, or even a direct sale, where it's basically you're just a moving slab of armor. But this is definitely an upcoming premium tank. There's also, so this is another one of those quirky tanks to where, so the Object 703 2, but this is a 100mm version. I could see them releasing this at some point. Obviously we have the higher caliber gun version as the premium tank that you can currently get. However, this was kind of a canned version of it with a smaller gun. I could see them bringing this, you know, at some point in the future, because why not? It's balanced. Throw it in, let people buy it some way. But yeah, I don't think that's short term. That'll be, you know, black market event or something. There's also, so 2 tanks, the Object 259A. They're pretty similar. The version that's going to be released, from my understanding, is the Udarniy. This is an upcoming Russian tier 8 premium heavy tank. It's got a really quirky armor scheme to where you only can damage this little like diamond shape. All this is basically 0 damage, and the thing is actually, you know, moderately fast. It's got a pretty good gun on it, pretty good armor. You know, gun oppression is not too great, but it's not terrible. So this is, you know, possible holiday ops tank, maybe a reward tank, or not reward, a marathon tank. But this is definitely a premium coming out at some point, because they've been balancing it quite a bit here in 2022. Moving up to tier 9, just trying to find, if I can actually find it here, the K91 2, if it's in, there we go. So this got up tiered to tier 9, used to be a tier 8, basically K91, a lot of people know that tank. Unlike the TD version and the current medium version that we have in the game, this is a basically centrally mounted version. It used to be tier 8 and they up tiered it to tier 9. Most likely, you know, basically this is going to be a premium tank. Don't think that, you know, already having a K91 PT as a TD for the battle pass rewards, they would put a second one in. So most likely either some loot box tank, or they'll end up selling it, or maybe a reward for like a special event or something like that. There's also the Object 590. Now this tank, do note, it doesn't have the extra credits on it, so reward tank. This was planned a while ago, so it has a auto reloader on it. You know, it's got pretty decent armor, you know, mobility, a little bit of everything. It's almost like a Russian main battle tank in a sense, you know, from the looks of it. But it's been in the game files for a while now. Hasn't been released. Maybe it was planned to be like a battle pass reward or something, you know, where we might see that as a battle pass tank, you know, coming out next year. Or maybe they'll retool it into a premium tank in the future. Almost on Russia, I promise. So now there's getting down to heavy tanks. There's the Object 752. This has been in the game files for quite some time. So it has an oscillating turret, pretty good gun depression, and it's got a 3-round autoloader. Another tank where it doesn't have any extra credits, so this was pre like tier 9 premium tanks, so it's been hanging around for a while. So either retooled into a premium most likely, or maybe we'll see it as a battle pass reward tank, you know, going into next year. But this tank, you know, it's actually got pretty good armor frontally. You know, that's really the main thing. Really strong turret. Does have some cupolas and the autoloader, which is a little bit different for a lot of Russian tanks. Let's see, there's a couple other tanks we'll get to that aren't in the tech tree shown here. The only one I had skipped was a tier 7 T34 M54. This I would say is pretty likely to be in the loot boxes because they were kind of tweaking this around when it comes to in 2022 here, and I could see this being a loot box tank kind of as a like a filler for a non-tier 8 or tier 9 tank. Now going down to, we're gonna go down to, or no, France doesn't have anything in the tech tree. We do have something later on that's not shown in the tech tree, but Britain, so this tank's been in for ages, is basically a down tier Black Prince. This is kind of fitting with the Russian tanks and the German tanks that you have a bunch of down tiered. I feel like they were trying to do a historical mode at some point, and basically they canned it. So that's unfortunate. And there's a bunch of unreleased Chieftain tanks in here as well. Here's the Chieftain MK6, you know. This tank, you know, basically not being released. It is on console on a Chinese server, however. And then if I can get this to come back up, there's the reward Chieftain, but there's also another tier, 10 Chieftain in here as well. That's unreleased. They're just kind of hanging out there. They've been there forever. Going down. Okay, we covered Britain, and we got Czechoslovakia. So one of the tanks, there's another we'll get to in a little bit here, is the VZ55 Gothic Warrior. This is at some point, I feel like we're gonna get this. I don't believe the styles on it, but basically this was a sold tank on the Chinese server, and it has like a special camo on it that's currently not on the tank from my understanding because it doesn't look special. I feel like we might get this at some point, black market-esque. It seems like it'll fit pretty well into that for wargaming. But otherwise, there's nothing really special from what I know, though. The KanJpz, this tank I don't think was ever released. I could be wrong. Maybe I missed it, but it's been kind of hanging out for several years. Maybe they'll finally throw it into a loot box or a special event or something. Because I believe that people have kind of asked for this tank, even though it's a low tier tank. People have wanted them to release it. Now, going down to China here, this most likely is going to be the freebie tank for holiday ops this year. The T26 CN. Nothing too special. It's basically a freebie tank. And then moving up here, we got the upcoming premium, the WZ-113-2. So basically a down-tiered 113, kind of gimped gun. Mobility's decent, armor for a 113, hull and everything. This is going to be an upcoming premium tank. This, with all the rage of the Chinese tanks that they've been releasing, I could see this being in the holiday ops boxes potentially. I think it might be a tank that they wouldn't do a direct sale, though. Roping in all these servers, I don't think it would sell too well. Going down to Poland, there's nothing in the tech tree here. There is, this has been hanging around for Sweden, another, so like thinking back to the Russian tanks and stuff that don't have those premium markers, this was another kind of tier 9 reward tank that predates the tier 9 premiums, so where it hasn't been updated. It's just kind of hanging there. So maybe they'll retool it into a premium tank. Maybe it'll be a battle pass tank, for next year. Who knows? But I could see people picking this up because it's a little bit different. We don't really have many tier 9 Swedish tanks either. So otherwise, so time to get into some a little bit more interesting tanks here. And newer tanks. These ones aren't in the tech tree, the where wargaming's kind of hiding them a little bit. We already went over the Tiger though, but to start off with the most interesting one, that's actually very heavily rumored to be basically, it might be the first tier 10 premium tank coming. Could be wrong. And it's rumored to basically be coming during the Halloween mode. I think it's between the Lion and there's also the BZ176, but when it comes down to it, the Lion, I'm just pulling something over on my other screen here. So just give me 1 second here. There we go. So this tank is rumored to be part of the Halloween mode that's coming up, because this shows what a lot of people think is the Lion tank that's currently in the game files, based on the turret, the little marker, and also the number of wheels basically on the track. So it's possible. So this mode should be coming out here very shortly. Looking at the Lion, so this is a tier 10 premium. It's the only tier 10 that, you know, most of them are marked as, you know, no credits. It could just be something, but they literally just added it in with this update. It's the only tier 10 that has this marker though, for like reward tanks and stuff like that. So it's interesting because when you look at, say, like the VZ55 Gothic Warrior, like that doesn't earn more credits, you know, stuff like that. So like this does have credits, and like it's, you know, a lot of people think it's coming out with the Chinese, or not the Chinese, the Halloween mode coming up. This could be the first tier 10 premium tank. Think about everything that we've gotten this year. Couldn't put it past Wargaming to do that. In any event though, it's a Leopard tank. So 105mm, and it's got an auto reloader gun. So basically four rounds. It's what, 5 seconds between? 5 seconds between each shot. 420 damage. You know, decent pen. The accuracy is pretty bad though. You know, it does have an auto reloader though, so I guess that's to kind of compensate for that. They still are kind of testing this. This was added in for super testers, so I could see them honestly releasing this as a tier 10 premium, you know, and them jumping the, you know, over that hurdle, because when we saw tier 9 premiums come out, or you know, when they came out, you know, not too long ago, kind of inevitable. Maybe they'll, you know, remove that, and maybe it was a mistake and it's just a reward tank, but you know, it's probably likely, looking at the teasers, that it's between the Lion, and I think it could be the BZ as well. Moving on though, SU-122-54, this tank used to be in the tech tray, and it's just kind of sitting. It doesn't even have like any, you know, no reward status, nothing. It's still technically counted as a tech tree tank. I think at some point they should bring it back, you know, pawn shop, or, you know, basically like a black market tank or something. But pretty interesting tank, you know, with decent mobility, and, you know, kind of like a lower damage gun. Next up, so T54 Heavy. This could be a holiday ops tank. You know, it's currently being balanced, and this could also be a battle pass tank, you know, going into next year. It does have the more credit option, so a premium. So that's where, again, like Wargaming does change these things, but you know, this could be a premium. I think the holiday ops boxes this year will probably have 1 or 2 tier 9 tanks for premiums in it. The T54 Heavy though, pretty high alpha for a American heavy tank. And otherwise, like, you know, it doesn't look too much different than a lot of other, you know, American heavies that we have otherwise. But the main feature for this is the higher 450 damage, and it's also got 12 degrees of gun depression. Let me get back down here, and this is still being actively balanced. There's the newest tank, the Object 283. This is a tier 9 upcoming premium Russian medium tank. This tank is kind of like almost the old K91 line, where they were more armor, kind of side scraping, stuff like that. This tank has pretty good armor, and you're kind of playing it as a, you know, kind of like, you know, side scraping tank, you know, stuff like that. Otherwise, you know, not super good at like sniping and stuff like that due to the poor accuracy. Whoops, I clicked the wrong thing. Now getting into what's likely to be either a battle pass tank or a holiday ops tank. This is a upcoming tier 9 French light tank, most likely a premium tank, the Char Mle 75. Now this tank has 2 different modes on it that you can swap between, kind of like the wheel tanks in a sense, where it changes your camouflage and, you know, it changes your mobility. So sure, a lot of people are going to love that they're adding in another very mobile, you know, fast tank. And then, you know, the gun on it, it's got a low damage, you know, not great penetration, autoloader with 6 rounds on it. So pretty interesting tank. And when it comes to mobility, you know, really good mobility, camouflage is, you know, okay. It's going to be different to where I could see this being anywhere from like a marathon to, you know, holiday ops tank, because people would want this because it is, you know, different and quirky, and it kind of fits what Wargaming's doing, trying to release like interesting different tanks with like gimmicks and stuff. This is another new CS52C, down-tiered CS52. You know, it's got a pretty low alpha gun. Surprisingly, gun depression's okay, good turret armor, you know, whole armor, and the thing's, you know, pretty maneuverable, but it does have, again, so it's got a turbo mode, much like the tier 10 CS tank in that line. So this is just bringing it down to a premium tank. I could see, again, they're actively balancing pretty much the Lion, T54, Object 283, Char Mle, CS52, getting into the BZ176, also the WZ116, and the M47 that we're going to get to. The BZ176, though, this is a upcoming Chinese rocket booster. Yes, there's rocket boosters that work, and they're going to propel you even faster. You go from 30 kilometers an hour to a top speed of 53 kilometers an hour. You can go 1 kilometer an hour backwards, though, with the rockets on now. Or jet boosters, I should say, excuse me. You can use them 4 times a battle, I believe. 10-second reload? I could be wrong. This, though, has a derp gun on it, and you either do 1100 damage HE round or 800 damage with a, I believe, heat round. And it's, if you look even further here, pretty bad accuracy, aiming time as well. It's got 10 degrees of gun depression. Got really thick, heavy armor. However, when you hold down on this thing, the gun, this actually raises, kind of like the tier 10 Panzerwagen light tank. So this does become a weak spot. But this tank is going to be absolutely ridiculous with the rocket boosters. I would say it's like 80+% that we're going to get this before 2023, either marathon or holiday ops. I feel like rocket booster, like, yeah, that's Wargaming's like lining up, like people are going to, you know, throw money at them for that. Rocket booster derp tank sold. So that tank is coming soon. WZ111-6, so another, you know, different take. I believe this is basically a mashup of, so WZ111 and I forget what Czechoslovakian tank, but basically it's kind of coming up with a premium Chinese heavy. This one, I think this is more built for the Chinese server than anybody, to where maybe we'll see it sold on there. And at some point, maybe it'll trickle onto other servers. So unless it's thrown into like holiday ops boxes, I doubt that we're gonna see this one super soon. I could be wrong, but this seems like it's something to where they're kind of gearing that specifically to that server. And then, last but not least, I know this video is very long here, trying to go through as fast as possible, is the M47 Improved. So essentially, very weird tank as far as like the look and design of this. But essentially a different take on the pattern that we already know, and it's got additional, you know, armor screens if you're kind of reading the historical reference here, and, you know, mobility I believe is slightly lower because of that. Pretty good gun depression because of the pattern, but like looking at the armor, here on this tank. So you have a 65mm screen over 160mm behind it. So a little bit different when it comes to the screen, and there's even basically space armor on the front here, on the upper glacis and the lower glacis as well. So interesting, different tank. This could, honestly, I think this is gearing up. It is a tier 8. That's the only thing, since it, it isn't a tier 9. I doubt that we'll see that. If it was tier 9, I would say it would be for like the battle pass. Tier 8 though, more of a holiday ops, marathon, or straight sale. Being, something that I feel like a lot of people would go out of their way to buy this because it's different, kind of like a Super Pershing. But, 2022 version, maybe 2023. In any event though, that's pretty much all the tanks, I believe. Hopefully I didn't miss any. I think the biggest question mark is going to be the Lion, which, pulling that image up again here, so that's where personally, like, I feel like it looks more like this, which crap, it disappeared, looks more like the BZ Chinese, the back of the turret. However, the other markings and the track wheels and everything does very much look like the Lion. But it'll be interesting to see if this is actually coming out with the Halloween mode for a earnable tank, or an auction, or like build it like the Object 780 maybe. I guess that, could possibly, be like that, almost like the Object 780. But only time will tell. I guess we'll find out soon. But this tank, I feel like, is coming, very, very near term here, because they added it in for people to do final testing. So it very much could be the Halloween event that they're hyping up, which seems like you're going to have at least 4 or 5 earnable special commanders. Looks like they're kind of basic, almost like the Halloween version of Snow Maidens, it looks like, from what I can see from the Halloween event. But this tank should be pretty interesting to see where we're going at, but most likely seeing that, unless it's a mistake, tier 10 premium's coming. In any event, thanks again for watching this, and have a good one, and hopefully I'll see you in another video sometime soon. See ya.